something I feel like we've been sort of talking around, but how to apply best practices of digital and direct response marketing that e-commerce brands in the non-food space apply to food. Because obviously, one thing that I see from a lot of brands is their challenges. They're selling in retail and they're also selling direct to consumer. So they're trying to figure out how they should be investing their digital marketing and what their message should be, especially because for a lot of consumers, if they're buying direct to consumer, often the threshold for buying is higher. Like you'll have to spend $50, $60. So if a consumer has never tried the product or the brand, they're going to be hesitant to do that. So then it becomes this thing like, do we try and send them to a retailer and then try to convert them to a direct to consumer customer? And it's just like very messy. And I feel like a lot of brands that I talk to really don't understand that. And I don't really understand that. So I'd love to get thoughts about that.
Yeah, Allison, I think a consistent brand message is first and foremost. So while we may look at consumer and shopping behaviors, like we have one brand message that goes across every single place within our advertising that's benefit driven and or, consumer related driven. There's a halo effect. I almost wanted to ask if you were in sales, because I think when we were saying we were going to spend more advertising, with a D2C link, our head of sales initially our chief customer officer got really, nervous. But then what she saw was the halo effect. Like everything that you're doing within the digital space and that learning that I talked about provides, if you are in all of these spaces, provides that halo effect. So they might not, I might not see a conversion at the end of a D2C driven ad, but it's another tag towards a high conversion opportunity consumer that the next time that they're in store or they're shopping online, marketing is not perfect. There's no perfect attribution model, algorithm that you can say this goes to this to this. I wish digital has helped, but it is all about seeing, do all tides rise? And what we saw is when we amplified a really wonderful message about the strength of our brand and tested different areas, we saw even our e-commerce, rose. We also saw our retail sales rise. So that halo effect is real, and it's just about, remembering that that it is an omni-channel world.
Anyone else have anything to add?
Yeah, that's super helpful. I mean, I don't know if Kelsey, you have any thoughts about that too, just coming from, the social media space in terms of selling as well. Like if you've seen, because I just think about the way, like Everlane might sell a pair of boots is not the same way we sell a food product traditionally as marketers these days. And I was just curious about how we can use some of those, best practices, to kind of amplify in those channels, direct response, on top of the brand awareness that Katie mentioned.
Absolutely. So I would say to that, the core of what works is that repetition is recognition, and recognition is trust. And you can't have sales without trust, no matter if it's retail, D2C, you have to show up enough times for a consumer, especially in the absence of physical trial, enough times for them to know you, like you, and trust you. And a shortcut is amplifying your brand message, as Katie said, through strategic partnerships. And one thing that I didn't get to bring up earlier that I think might be helpful on this point is that from a social media perspective and a digital marketing perspective, one trend in the industry that we're seeing is extremely effective and we expect to continue is long-term partnerships. There used to be a sort of spray and pray, which meant like spraying a bunch of money over a bunch of different influencers and just praying, like seeing what sticks, versus now quality over quantity, long-term partnerships, because what that's allowing brands to do is show up in those ideal customers' feeds over and over and over again. And so when they're ready for that last click, they already recognize you, know you, a trusted influencer has talked about you, so they are going to then trust you. So it all comes down to that idea of trust and repetition. And of course, you know, it might be a little bit different for a fashion brand like Everlane, but the core of it is the same. Just getting in front of people who are predisposed to like your product over and over and over again, so that when they are ready to buy, when they're in a position to buy and presented with a method to purchase, they're ready to go.
Great, thank you.
I think, Kelsey, one of the other things, Allison, that might help that we've used just, and I know with Tagger and that long-term relationship, is having that same influencer do retail-driven campaigns around a specific time, and then brand messaging, you know, campaigns or D2C-driven campaigns. And because, as I said, that is how we know people are shopping. So it's not like there has to be a loyalty that they can only talk to this. It's someone that that audience identifies with, really saying, hey, you know, here they are at, you know, Whole Foods or Target, and it's on sale. Fantastic, go get it. And then, you know, later down the road, they're like, oh my gosh, a partnership with Save the Children is only available on e-commerce. And that audience knows that that influencer already has an affinity to the brand, and that works, you know, to fit each of your needs where you can see that direct return.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you, Katie and Kelsey.
I can just add one quick thing. So OMSOM is mostly like 99% D2C right now. So can't speak too much to like omnichannel, although it's definitely something that we're like thinking about now and solving for right now. I do think like in our experience, a lot of the like acquisition methods that like an Everlane would use are things that are in our toolkit. I do think, however, like the mix and where we invest more is a little bit different. Like I do think as a food brand, we do have to disproportionately invest in 3 areas that I would say have helped to kind of combat the I guess the barrier that folks feel when they see the shipping size and the like the block around tasting the product. And those areas, the first would be content creation. I think food brands have to over-invest in this because that's how people get a sense for what the food looks like, what it might taste like based on the appearance, or, you know, having recipes, helping bring it to life for customers before they have it in hand. The second thing is around stoking that word of mouth. So you can do that through product seeding. You can do that through not being a transactional brand, but really speaking to the values that resonate with the consumer, which makes them much more likely to share what you're doing if it says something about them that they like or they want to associate with. And then the last one, which is the most black box, what I'd say is press. Obviously, like, you know, everybody hopes every brand hopes they can get press, but I think we have found that like people really trust publications when it comes to food.